Hey friends, it's Krista, your Kentucky real estate advisor. And if you've been thinking about moving to Kentucky, especially from out of state, this video is for you. Every week I talk to buyers from places like Florida, Ohio, Michigan, New England, Texas, even California, who are curious about small town Kentucky living. And they all ask the same question: is it really as affordable and peaceful as it looks? Today, I'm giving you a real, honest, boots on the ground breakdown of what it actually is like to live in Kentucky. The good, the challenges, and the things no one puts in brochures. Let's start with why so many people are moving to Kentucky right now. First, affordability. Housing costs here are dramatically lower than many other states. A lot of my out-of-state buyers are shocked at how much home and sometimes land along with it that they can get for their money. Also, as I have mentioned before, property taxes are generally quite a bit lower than many other states. Second, pace of life. Kentucky is slower, calmer, and more community focused. People wave, they talk to you in line at the grocery store. It feels human again. You can enjoy more community and getting to know others if you want to. If you want to maintain more of a private life, people here respect that too. Third, location. You're close to bigger cities like Lexington and Louisville, but you're not living in the chaos. You get more space, land, and peace without being completely overwhelmed. Here's a quick overall snapshot of what out-of-state buyers don't expect in a good way. A strong sense of community. There are loads of options in most every small town community to get involved in some way, shape, or form. There are plenty of nonprofits if you have a particular passion to volunteer in. Also, most small towns have chambers if you're the type of person who likes to mingle and get to know other business owners in the community. And especially in the summer, you can find plenty of farmers markets, outdoor concerts, events, and festivals to jump into and get to know the various communities. Another bonus of moving to these areas is that you have less competition for homes compared to big metro areas. This can change as you look into certain pockets of Lexington and Louisville, but on the outskirts, we are finally beginning to see more days on market, which is so helpful to buyers who don't want to be pushed to make up their mind yesterday, as many of them had to during the COVID years. One of my favorite benefits of living in this area is that you'll find that kids still ride bikes and play outside. Now I realize that this next generation of kids don't always love to be outside, but I always encourage mine to spend as much time as possible outdoors and love the creative imagination this brings for kids. Obviously, I kept an eye on them, but it's so nice to give them some independence as they get a little older, but not old enough to drive, to be able to hop on a bike and ride around town a bit. Another one of my favorite things about the smaller communities is that you'll find that people genuinely look out for each other. It's easier to maintain friendships in an area where there's a slower pace of life, and we are there for each other, which is something that I just love about being here. And honestly, that small town charm you hear about, it's real. If you're someone who wants space, quiet evenings, and a simpler lifestyle, Kentucky delivers that in a big way. Now, as promised, let's talk about things people don't always mention about Kentucky, including the weather. Kentucky is not for everyone, and that's okay. You'll find fewer big box stores in rural areas. The going joke is that you're never too far from a Dollar General, though. Not that you could live on that, but they do typically carry your basic necessities for food and other items. It's nice to go rural, but you also need to be able to live 45 minutes to an hour away from places you might normally be right around the corner from, depending on how rural you're interested in going. Longer drives to certain amenities, especially like hospitals for older retirees, are a deterrent from rural living. If you are bound and determined to go rural and you work from home, or appreciate the ability to be connected, you will also want to check the internet coverage, as internet service can vary depending on the location. Starlink is sometimes an option in super rural locations that don't have other options, but it is also important to know that just because there is internet service, it may not be the best. There are some internet providers that are available where fiber optic is not, that is super slow, so figuring out the speed is also important. Another issue of living in the more rural areas is that job markets are smaller outside the larger cities. Often people still prefer to live in smaller towns and commute to the larger areas if that's what it takes, but it is important to take that daily drive time into consideration if you're planning to move and find a different job. Finally, one of the other downsides that is sometimes good and sometimes bad, depending on the situation, is that some of the rural towns have no planning and zoning. Most of the time when planning and zoning comes up, it's in a negative connotation, as they're making a big change here that no one wants. But planning and zoning really comes in handy when you live in a neighborhood of, say, brick ranch homes, and somebody wants to put a double wide trailer on that extra tract of land that's available. Now, please hear me out. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with double wide trailers, except that it just might not be the place in a neighborhood of homes that all look similar other than that. So what you can sometimes find in rural locations with no planning and zoning is that you have as much freedom as you want to build what you want, which can be amazing to have no restrictions. You just have to remember that your neighbors also don't have restrictions, and they also have the freedom to build what they want. Yes, it is quieter. And if you thrive on constant nightlife or trendy hotspots, small town Kentucky may feel slow. And you may want to consider more populated areas like Lexington or Louisville. But for many of my clients, that slow is exactly what they're escaping to. Kentucky is perfect for remote workers, retirees, families wanting space, first-time homebuyers, and people downsizing from high-cost states. So if you're dreaming about a porch instead of traffic, a yard instead of a condo, or quiet mornings instead of noise, Kentucky might just work for you. One thing every out-of-state buyer should know is that where you live in Kentucky matters. Small towns like Berea, Ravenna, Paris, Winchester, and Stanton all offer very different vibes, and choosing the right one makes all the difference. That's where working with a local real estate agent who actually lives here is key, because Google can't exactly tell you how a town feels. If you're even thinking about moving to Kentucky or just want to explore what life could look like here, I'd love to help. Drop a comment, send a message, or check out my information to contact me via the information in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe. I post weekly videos breaking down Kentucky towns, neighborhoods, and real estate tips for out-of-state buyers. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next one.